Brought to you by DK Audio.
Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. Read by Tony Robinson. Chapter 1. Born in the Workhouse. On a cold and wet night, a young woman was found lying in the street. You could tell she'd walked a long way, for her shoes were as thin and worn out as she was, and though she was about to have a baby, she had no wedding ring. No one knew anything else about her, neither where she'd come from, nor where she was going. This poor young girl was taken into the workhouse, and there she had her baby. "Let me hold him," she whispered. When the surgeon put the boy in her arms, she pressed her cold white lips passionately on his forehead, then fell back and died. Oliver Twist was an orphan. As there was no one who could look after a baby in the workhouse, Oliver was sent to a nursery to be looked after by an elderly woman called Mrs. Mann. In truth, Mrs. Mann was fonder of looking after herself than the children in her care. There was never enough food, and always too many beatings. But at least Oliver had friends, and he knew nothing else. And so it was that on Oliver's 9th birthday, he found himself with two of these friends locked in the coal cellar for daring to be hungry, when Mr. Bumble, the beadle in charge of the workhouse, unexpectedly paid a visit. "Goodness gracious, Mr. Bumble, how glad I am to see you, surely," said Mrs. Mann. She gestured to the maid to unlock the boys and quickly wash them, and showed Mr. Bumble into the parlour.
"Oliver Twist is 9 years old today," began Mr. Bumble.
"Bless him," said Mrs. Mann.
"And, despite a most generous reward of £10, we've never been able to discover anything about his family."
Mrs. Mann raised her hands in astonishment before adding, "How comes he to have any name at all, then?" The beadle drew himself up with great pride and said, "I invented it. We name our orphans in alphabetical order. The last was an S. Swubble, I named him. This was a T. Twist, I called him. And this Twist is now too old to stay here. I've come out myself to take him back to the workhouse. So let me see him at once." "I'll fetch him immediately," said Mrs. Mann. And Oliver, having by this time been well scrubbed, was presented.
"Will you go along with me, Oliver?"
said Mr. Bumble in a majestic voice, as if Oliver had any choice, which he didn't. So Oliver found himself waving goodbye to his companions of 9 years, and trotting along to keep up with the long strides of Mr. Bumble on his way to the workhouse. As soon as they arrived, Oliver was taken into a room where 8 or 10 fat gentlemen sat around a table.
"Bow to the board,"
said Bumble. Seeing no board but the table, Oliver luckily bowed to that. But the sight of so many gentlemen made him tremble, and he was unable to answer their questions without crying.
"Well, boy," said one red-faced gentleman, "you have come here to be taught a useful trade, so you'll begin to pick oakum tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock.
Oliver bowed again, and was then hurried away to a large ward, where, on a rough, hard bed, he cried himself to sleep. The room in which the boys were fed was a large stone hall with a copper at one end, out of which the master ladled the gruel at meal-times. Each boy had one bowl of gruel and no more, except on festive days, when they were also allowed a small portion of bread.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?